we've obviously met on Nostr and are bullish on Bitcoin and bullish on Nostr, which are new technologies. But what have you done throughout your career that helped you see the value in Bitcoin and helped you see the value in Nostr?
In 1989, I saw the internet and I thought, holy cow, this is amazing. I was actually at a college. We were on a Primos computer, which is a very old mini computer in the computer lab of the local college. And they told us to do something called telnet to alpha.mit.edu. And so I typed that in, and suddenly I got to a prompt of a DEC computer, which I was familiar with. So I understood DEC computers. And I thought, oh, this is another computer they've got on campus somewhere. And it was a DEC computer, so I knew my way around it. I was playing around with it. And at the end, we'd finished playing with it, and we came out, and I was chatting to the lecturer and said, where's that DEC computer? He said, oh, that's in Harvard, in America. I said, well, you mean we dialed up? I was familiar with modems. I said, you dialed up to America? You know, how much did that cost? No, we've got something called the internet. I said, what's that?
Wow.
And so I went away, and of course there was no internet to search it. So I kind of had to keep on hassling the lecturers. And then eventually I found out about TCP/IP, and I realized that was, which is the protocol on the internet. And we were looking at implementing that on our network. And then I realized, okay, so we can, my company was a global public company. We were in the UK, Los Angeles, and Tokyo. And we wanted to connect our computers together. We were faxing information between the computer centers, which sounds weird, but that was all that was available. We wanted to connect lease lines, but they were prohibitively expensive, like millions of dollars a year to connect. And we were quite a large company, but that's still a lot of money. And suddenly there was this internet that you could just pay a couple of $1,000 or $1,000 a month or something per site, connect to the internet, and you could use a public network to connect our computers together to get them to talk directly to each other for a significantly less amount of money. At that time, commercial traffic wasn't allowed on the public internet. It's like, oh, okay, that's a bit of a problem. We're a commercial company. We're sending orders and stock control lists and all sorts of things between computers. What do I do about this? So I was on a bulletin board, and there were 3 other guys on this bulletin board and said, we're lobbying the government to try and allow commercial traffic on the public internet. Business, we want to start companies, but you actually have a use case. You actually want to use this internet for commercial traffic. Can we include you in this lobbying part and get you involved and sort of put your case to the government to convince them to pass legislation to allow commercial traffic on the internet? So I kind of joined in, gave the use case, and a few months later, the UK passed a bill saying, yes, commercial traffic was allowed on the public internet. So great.
Cool.
So I got an internet connection. So I connected our computer, contacted Japan and America. They said, no, we're not allowed. So,
wow.
Oh, screw that. So I suddenly had an internet connection ready to connect to computers around the world, and I couldn't because we were the only ones that could do it. So,
wow.
Okay, I really don't want to lose my internet connection. I love it. So I had to turn it commercial. And my colleagues had built into the original internet service providers, dial-up internet service providers. The concept of starting a company that's never going to make money was an alien concept. This is quite a modern thing. You start a company, you generate a lot of, you obtain a lot of money, you acquire a customer base without making money. We were from a different era, different philosophy. You have to show you can make profit from day one, or see any commercial business model for an ISP making money. So I then realized, well, there was Tim Berners-Lee just created the World Wide Web, and we just built our first website and got our first inquiries. And I realized, okay, I can start writing websites for people. And so I started writing for companies. And then by 2001, we had a 45 megabit internet connection in both directions. It cost UK for 45 megabits £15,000 per month for 45 megabit internet connection.
Wow.
And that was commercially viable because at that time, broadband was just coming out. Most people had dial-up modems, but we were making money. And then so our cost base was something like 50,000 a month, and we were making money off a cost base of 50,000 a month. And we got some of the very early customers, a very popular site in the UK called Friends Reunited. I went to school with one of the guys at Friends Reunited, and we hosted them, and they ended up taking 2-3% of entire UK traffic. We were dealing with KPMG, Andrew Lloyd Webber's Really Useful Company, Sainsbury's, loads of companies that were just starting to get onto the internet, and we were hosting them and doing good business. And then we had a hostile takeover. So we got Peter Gillenhammer, who had sold his company Volvo to Ford, saw that we had land in Blackheath, which was a sports club, which he hoped to develop into houses and make a fortune. He didn't know there was a covenant on the land that prevented that from happening. So his firm successfully attempted a hostile takeover, only later to find out he couldn't ever do anything with the land. And so we kind of left. We lost that due to solicitor incompetence. We had control of the company, but our solicitors made a critical mistake. So we left the company, bought out all the small divisions. My internet company, they didn't allow me to buy out. That was sold off to another company. And so we left, helped those companies. They're now one of the companies we helped, a company called Quickscent, now acquired my family's company, Densitron, and it now sits inside their company, which is a public company. So we helped about 12 companies. They kind of was mostly successful, and we exited the last of those in 2012. Then I started investing in Tech City in London and in China, in Shanghai. So my father opened up China in 1981 and went in there and started their journey to commercialism. Along with it, he was on the first trade mission from the UK. And so we had a big factory there called VBest, which now Evervision we made. So the displays on your screen, we kind of started that business of full color liquid crystal displays. Technology called TFT, thin film transistor, was what Densitron kind of was involved in the very early days. Then I kind of took us into the internet era, and then we got booted out. And kind of started investing in other technologies. And then 2016, I sort of bought Bitcoin. 2021, lockdown, saw the value of my Bitcoin holdings and thought, okay, this is for me. So that's a very abridged history of my working life.
Thank you for sharing, Mike. It's awesome. And I love speaking with people like yourself, because in some ways, as an investor, I can sit alongside all your experience and also buy Bitcoin. And I don't need to know, like, I can just ask you that one question. You can list off all of these things that you've been involved in, and you're interested in Bitcoin and you're putting your money into it. It's like, okay, well, actually, that's probably enough due diligence for me alone to be interested. And that's what I love so much about these conversations, because I'm able to, and anyone listening for that matter, is able to leverage your expertise and decision making for themselves.